We've got Ibram X. Kendi here, as you can see. Kendi's a renowned scholar and author who studies anti-racism and how he says it can improve all of our lives. Kendi is now applying that research, which adults have flocked to kids with two new books. One is How to Raise an Anti-Racist. It's for parents. And there's a picture book, Goodnight Racism, for kids. Kendi is the founding director of the Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research and a CBS News contributor. Ibram, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Both books are really interesting and I think valuable. And before you get into how parents can address racism with a toddler or even a teenager, talk about why the old way of just teaching color blindness is insufficient in your view.
I mean, that way assumes that our kids don't see color. And unfortunately, scholars have shown that by 1 year old, our kids can see skin color. By 3 years old, our kids are attaching skin color to positive or negative traits. And so if we're just assuming that our kids aren't doing that, how are we counteracting that? You know, because it's dangerous for our kids to be like, I don't want to play with that black boy. And so I want us to counteract that as parents.
So the counteracting is the core of anti-racism. So how do you start teaching very young children how to do that?
One of the most beautiful things in the world is rainbow. And we can teach our children that there's a such thing as a human rainbow. And that there's different sort of shades on that human rainbow, and they can see their shade. And they can appreciate their shade and see how it's different than other shades, but they're all the same. They're all part of sort of humanity. My daughter's favorite color right now is the rainbow. And she's like, why wouldn't it be? It has all the colors.
Why do I have to choose one, right?
Exactly.
I can have them all.
I like in your book where you said racism is a bloodsucker of joy. Totally agree with that. And you say to do nothing in a society of justice is to uphold racism. I know parents say, look, I don't need my kids to learn this. I just want them to be children.
I want my child to be a child as well. And the unfortunate thing is racism prevents our children from being children. Even, you know, girls are adultified, particularly black girls. But what's the real issue is that we need to protect our kids, you know, from racist ideas, from the idea that dark is ugly or light, you know, is beautiful. And that actually prevents them from being, you know, children.
You talk about racially socializing a child, even. What do you mean?
Well, there are all sorts of ways in which scholars have shown we racially socialize. We've talked about color blindness. There's also mistrust of a racial group. When we say, don't play with those kids, and those kids have to be a particular skin color, that's promoting mistrust for those particular kids. There's also preparation for racism. There's allowing kids to understand that some people are gonna think you're special because of your skin color. You're special when you're nice. You're special when you share, but you're not special because of your skin color.
So is that how you prepare children for racism without having a sense of fear and anxiety? Because like Gayle mentioned, there are parents out there that want to remove themselves from this conversation completely. And then there's parents out there that just don't know how to do it, how to teach their child to be anti-racist.
It is, and you know, by the time our kids become teenagers, you have unfortunately, white supremacists are recruiting white, particularly male teens online. That produces a lot of anxiety, especially if those white supremacists are telling those kids the problem are those other people. And you're sharing with their kid, no, the reason for inequities are bad policies. That's what needs to change. That's what's dangerous. That's protective, so they don't get attracted to those white supremacists.
But then they'll look at you and say, you're the racist, actually, Ibram Kendi. I was watching someone on TV. You're the one that's a racist who's promoting these ideas.
Who's teaching everyone to see race as opposed to the opposite.
Exactly.
Well, I'm actually teaching people to see racism. There's a difference. Like the race is a mirage, but racism is real. And it's, you know who's the most likely to be harmed by racism? Our children. And you know who were the least likely to engage about it? Our children.
Our children.
You know, that's what's really propelling me to do this work.
Yeah, because you said sometimes you're raising, people can raise racist ideas and not even know that they're doing it. I think that's very important to make that a point to make.
Yeah, I mean, if let's say you're walking down, a street, and you come across a black male, and your child sees that you're scared, you're talking to that child about race. You haven't said a word. You haven't said anything.
Is it important for parents to realize that we are fighting for our kids' minds and their spirits? Because if we don't teach them certain things, like you said, they will hear and feel and watch and see things, even in the home, but especially when they're outside in school or even walking around every day.
That is exactly the point. The unfortunate truth is we live in a society of all sorts of racial inequities and disparities, all sorts of ideas attaching goodness or badness to particular skin colors. We have to be teaching our children a different way of thinking, a way of being, in the world.
Yeah.
Well, I have a new grandchild, new book in his book club. Good night, racism. I love the last lines. Good night, hate. Good night, hurt. Good night, racism. Good night. Not a play on Good Night Moon. It's a whole different thing that you're teaching.
Gayle wants to add, and goodbye.
And yes, I would like to add that.
And please go to sleep.
Yes, that's a good
please
one.
go to sleep.
Ibram X. Kendi,
Politely.
thank you very much.
Politely.
Spoken like a
Said
father,
please.
which he is.
Yeah.
All right, How to Raise an Anti-Racist and Good Night Racism both go on sale tomorrow.